I'm going to start over because when you start with, I got gassed, I love this, so I'm going to ask a better question.
Okay,
fair enough.
So we can start
So
in.
I need to break in because you have not been hanging out down in the fan enough, because when you talk to people, they're like, okay, so the first time I got tear gassed, it was, the thing. And then the second time I only got hit by a rubber bullet, but I didn't really choke much. And then the third time it was like pepper balls and like one gets like everything is this, right? Like, okay, welcome to Richmond.
Welcome to Richmond.
You should leave the West End more.
Welcome to the Reinvention podcast. This is the Reinvention podcast. I'm Aaron Anderson, and this is Tara Cortland.
Hi.
And we are talking to two extraordinary people who are doing extraordinary things. So I want to start this over again. Tara, you brought a couple really amazing people here.
Hi, so I did. So having been hanging out in the middle of the protest for 6 weeks now, it did not occur to me that people having been tear gassed is the lead you want to go with, because that's a really
So we started this before, and the first story was the first time I got tear gassed.
Right.
So
I'm like, oh, apparently that's interesting to people. Go ahead. Let's do that. Let's
do that again. So, Ida, will you introduce yourself and explain exactly what it is you're doing?
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes. My name is Ida Allen. So on June 1st, I was tear gassed while peacefully protesting. Richmond Police Department decided to deploy tear gas on peaceful protesters who was taking a knee. We had then stood up, and yes, there was a curfew implemented, but we were 30 minutes away from our curfew.
This was before the curfew.
This was before the curfew. They decided to deploy tear gas.
This is Richmond, Virginia, by the Lee Monument.
And if you look it up on the internet, there's some amazing drone footage of, I'm sorry, I know this was awful for everyone, so I hate to say it was amazing, but the footage is amazing.
Dramatic.
It was super, thank you. It was dramatic and terrible of just all of these people on their knees, and suddenly these tear gas canisters come flying in.
So you were in that crowd.
I was in that crowd, and funny story is I had two of my friends, who are Caucasian, and family is 100% against protesting. So my initial reaction was, when we were getting tear gas, is somehow we got separated. So that was a very traumatic experience in itself. So the only thing that was running through my head, how am I going to tell my friend's family that something happened to them at a protest where they weren't even supposed to be at?
So 30 minutes before the curfew. So there's been protests in Richmond around police brutality. This is following the killings in New York and a lot of police brutality that's going on. A lot of people killed in bad ways. So you were protesting peacefully in Richmond. They enacted a curfew. 30 minutes before that curfew, the police started firing tear gas and rubber bullets at you. Is that right?
Tear gas, rubber bullets, and they even went further to spitting on a protester who was detained.
There's good video of that too.
And there's a video of that as well.
Yeah.
Spitting on a protester?
Spitting on a protester while in handcuffs on his knees. And there was about 8 police officers, if I remember correctly, watching as this detained protester was being spit on. It's baffling.
There's video. Dude, where have you been?
I've been watching. It's just extraordinary to hear. So, all right. So when this happened, you at that time didn't have a nonprofit. You were just a protester.
I was just a protester, just trying to support the cause in any way that I could.
And after that incident, what happened?
So after that incident, I immediately texted Ashley. I said, Ashley, I know you saw my Facebook Live. It's very dramatic and traumatic. And I said, I need an ally. I said, I still want to be on the front lines, and I still want to be a part of it, but I don't think that I can mentally handle being gassed again. So I said, let's set up with some water and some snacks. And that's how Richmond Action Alliance was formed. And then we even took it further to, we started registering people to vote. And we also help past convicted felons restore their rights to vote as well.
So you just started handing out water first.
Water first.
water and food, and then how did that become an actual organization? You run a nonprofit.
Yes, we do. We receive so much love and so much good feedback from the community. We wanted to take it further, and that's how Richmond Action Alliance was birthed.
Okay, and why did you form a nonprofit instead of just handing out water and registering people to vote?
Because there's still much work that needs to be done in our community. And I think that having a nonprofit platform would help us go even further, other than we also do classroom things where we teach IT classes, we do resume writing classes, we do skill building, things that will help the community to better the community. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But did you have a background in nonprofit? Did you have a background in education?
Absolutely. Well, I taught third grade for 3 years, but other than a background in nonprofit, I had no clue. I went to my partner, Ashley, and I talked about it. Literally, we were sitting out there one day, and I said, we should start a nonprofit. The love that we're getting from the community, I think we need to keep this momentum going, because I don't think that this is just a one-day kind of thing. It's a movement. So I went home and I talked to my partner. She has a background in starting nonprofits and getting them off the ground. So she actually helped us file our LLC and helped us file the paperwork for our 501c3.
So I want to break in here because I met Ashley first.
Yes.
Handing out water, and she gave me her phone number so I could text her to see if I could, like, hey, I can bring some water. Do you want some water? And I never met Ida because Ashley kept saying, well, I mean, I have, my coworker Ida is off filing paperwork for a nonprofit, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Because everybody's always about to launch an official 501c3, right. But I've never actually heard of anyone actually ever getting that done in months.
So you're going down to the statues,
yeah.
The monuments.
I like being in the middle of stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, there's people. Let's go see what they're doing.
And you saw them under a tent handing out water.
Handing out water. Yeah. So, but honest to God, I blew off the whole they're getting their nonprofit, because no one ever actually manages to get themselves together to do that. So the fact that they actually did that is part of the amazing thing.
Ashley, how did you know to do this?
Honestly, I had no idea what we were doing either. We've both just been winging it. And I think the fact that me and Ida work so well together in so many ways, we're similar in a lot of ways, has really just helped us learn and grow together during this whole process. I had been marching with her, and even a couple days without her. And then the one day that I had actually pulled a muscle, we had protested what was it? 8 hours, I think, the day before. And I pulled a muscle in my leg and literally couldn't walk down the steps of my apartment to go out and protest again. And I saw a notification that she was on Facebook Live. So I'd been trying to keep up with what was going on when I couldn't be out there or after I went home. And the fear and terror in the video was so extreme. And I had been tear gassed that Saturday night. So 2 days before that, I think I got tear gassed 3 or 4 times that night. Same exact story. People on their knees on Grace Street, a couple blocks away from one of the police headquarters downtown. So the story from the police now is that they assumed the protesters were going to riot or rampage the police headquarters.
Okay. They just assumed that?
I guess that's their story now, at least. But everyone, again, same exact story. Everyone was on their knees, stood up, went to continue marching forward towards the police officers who had barricaded us. And they threw about 15 canisters of tear gas into the crowd. Most people dispersed, and then they were like, no, let's go back. Like, we're peaceful. There's no reason for us to be assaulted right now. Like, this is insane. It's night 2 of the protest. It was nothing like the first night. The first night was, a bus caught on fire and a cop car caught on fire. And it was just the things you see on the news. But for the most part, the protest had been peaceful. A couple, crazies here and there. But
yeah, so let's say this. The protests in Richmond started pretty chaotically.
Yeah, they were pretty violent the first night, and it was that
Yeah.
first Friday.
There was a bus burned and some windows broken. And then
Aaron wouldn't let me go, by the way. We
no.
were watching the Facebook Live, and it was like, they're setting a bus on fire. We have to go help.
It's not
But
not a good
honestly,
idea.
I cannot say with a good heart that I think that was the protesters, because every protest after that, I think it was the first night where everyone felt like we were officially off lockdown.
Right.
So I think it was a bunch of kids just looking for a good night on the town, and that was their way of protesting. But if you look at it, every protest have been peaceful. There has not been a burnt bus. There hasn't been windows broken, no vandalism going on. So I'm really curious to how we go from 2 nights of straight violence to peaceful protesting. Even now, the
Immediately.
protests
So-
have been like,
Yeah, so we should say that after that the police didn't actually respond that first night. It was
Or the second night,
or
really.
the second
Yeah.
night.
Right.
They sort of came back and decided they would take out all their frustration after.
Right.
That's what it looked like, at
Yeah.
least.
And
no,
so-
that's exactly how it was portrayed. And even so, on the news footage, maybe like 3 weeks ago, the Whole Foods and the Starbucks that was vandalized, the first night of the protest, they tried to say 3 weeks ago, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Kim Gray was saying that the protesters were vandalizing Starbucks and they broke into Whole Foods and, just causing chaos amongst the city. And I think that they were using old footage to justify
The
them.
Starbucks and the Whole Foods went down on the same night in the second night of protests,
Right.
Yes.
like May 30th or
Right, so
something.
there-
that was
So there was some chaos the first couple nights,
Yeah.
but the protests since then have been remarkably
it's been extremely peaceful till the police show up.
100%.
until
Yeah.
the tear gassing
Yeah.
starts.
So these are now the best souvenirs to have in Richmond. So I keep bragging about getting pieces of the statues that they're taking down, but actually the best souvenirs to have in Richmond are the rubber bullets and tear
Yes.
gas canisters that
Yeah.
people have because they've been hit with them. So
Yes.
people are walking around. If you hang out around the circle, people will be like, oh yeah, and they'll reach in their pocket and they've been carrying around pepper balls. They've been carrying around like rubber. They've been carrying around stuff that they've picked up after they got shot with it.
How many
It's-
times have you been tear gassed exactly?
Myself personally, I've only been tear gassed one. I believe Ashley has been tear gassed several times.
Yeah, it was honestly just that that was the first night I'd went out marching. I think we showed up at like 7:00 at like Broad and Belvedere, and it's like a pretty busy intersection, and it was really peaceful. There was maybe 20 people just kind of holding up signs, honk in support of Black Lives Matter,
Right.
honk for George Floyd, whatever. And we started marching, and it started out really great. The Domino's down the street was handing us out free pizza. Everyone was just, really unified and really, there was a lot of pain and there was a lot of anger, but everyone was very spirited. Everyone was peaceful. Everyone had the intentions of being peaceful, at least everyone in the surrounding area of me. I think in the end, there was a couple hundred of us that night marching at least, because it was that first weekend. And then we got tear gassed. I want to say it was just before midnight, maybe 11:00. It's been so long now, and there's been so many late nights, I don't even remember. But I think in total that night, it ended up being like 5 or 6 times. Like you would, rinse your eyes out, rinse your face out.
5 or 6 times?
Yeah, at least.
We're both asthmatic. Let me add that.
Right. So, you're already wearing a mask, and it's the beginning of June, but it's already 80 degrees because it's Virginia and it's humid. So we're all wearing masks, and we've been marching for a couple of hours now and probably a few miles. And they tear gas us, and we're like, okay, let's go back. Like, we can't just give in. Like, that's the whole point of a protest. You don't just like get tear gas once and go home. So
The kids are all right.
I'm saying I was in the Army. You have to go through CS gas. So you go in this room and
I'm
you
sorry,
take off the
CS,
gas
that's
mask.
not tear gas. I've heard it from the president. It's not that it's not.
Right.
We didn't use tear gas.
That's right. That's right. Semantics matter. But it's an unpleasant thing.
it is. It definitely is.
It's very unpleasant, especially when we both suffer. We both have asthma. So being tear gas was, I think I'm still suffering from a little PTSD, if I'm being completely
I
honest.
bet.
Yeah, it's definitely a rough experience. And that night, thankfully, I had about a 20-pound book bag on. I had like a first aid kit, and I had this whole gallon Ziploc bag full of apple cider vinegar soaked rags and like extra pairs of goggles. Like I knew enough.
You came with apple vinegar soaked rags?
Yes, I knew enough to know that like just in case things go sideways, because you were hearing it from other big cities. You were hearing it out of Minneapolis, you were hearing it out of New York. And I was like, well, just in case, like, I don't want to be stuck out there in the middle of like 1,000 people.
And does that work?
It does, actually. It helps a lot. It neutralizes whatever in the gas that burns your throat like fire. So I'm running around in goggles that are like completely fogging up. You can't see anything. And we're trying not to trample each other. And we're like passing out waters to everyone. And
oh my God.
I'm passing out all the rags. I ended up passing out all 10 rags I had to people. And I had like a little tablespoon or two of vinegar in the bottom of the bag. So I just took my whole mask and like soaked it. And when I got home that evening, my roommate, I walked in the front door and he was like, good Lord, you smell awful. And I had accidentally dumped like apple cider vinegar all down the front of my shirt and pants, just in a rush trying to like pass them out to everyone. And he was like, what in the world is that? I was like, it's either the tear gas or the vinegar. I'm not really sure what we're working with here anymore. But that was the last night. Sunday, me and Ida met up the next morning. I think the protest started at 9 that day, and we marched all around downtown. We were out there till 3 or 4 in the afternoon at least. I think it was supposed to end at 6. And we had heard rumors that there was some white supremacy group showing up to try to cause drama and make it look like it was us. And we were like, before anything can happen,
we dispersed.
Everyone's just dispersed to make sure that like it ended on a peaceful note. So we were out there for 8 or 9 hours that day. That was my first like serious sunburn. I looked like a tomato for about a week. Actually, I think when Tara and everyone showed up and started passing out waters to us and stuff, like bringing us supplies, I still looked like a tomato, if I'm not mistaken. And then we set up out there, and it's been pretty much every day since then. So
I'm going to break in here. So when they were talking about, they mentioned vandalism, which I think we should talk about, because this is how the Lee Monument turned into the epicenter of the protest, is through what was initially vandalism and is now basically a community art project.
So let's zoom out for people who aren't in Richmond.
Okay.
So there are, Richmond was the capital of the Confederacy. Mm-hmm. Lots and lots of Confederate
Can I sing
statues.
Dixie now?
No, don't.
Please.
Lots of Confederate statues that were not put up during the Confederacy or even after. They were put up like 50 years later. In protest against the civil rights movement.
Aaron and Ace pointed out this would be like if Nazi Germany put up a statue of Goebbels 50 years after World War II was over. It's that kind of thing.
And the protesters, one of the ideas is that these statues come down, and then a lot of other things, police reform and things like that. But the city owns a lot of the statues, and so the city has taken down a bunch of them.
The protesters got there first.
The protesters.
At least 4 of them.
Yeah.
Right. And took them down their own way.
Yeah. They helped.
And you have some souvenirs.
I do, in fact.
We both have souvenirs.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They're trading cards now.
Yes.
Trade pieces of them.
But the biggest statue in Richmond is of Lee, in a big circle, and is an enormous statue, but that's owned by the state. So the city can't take it down, and there's a lawsuit that makes
waiting for him to get something wrong.
Is that right?
I'm watching him so that as soon as he gets something wrong, no, you're right so far, but I'm ready to jump on you as soon as you're wrong.
So that most of the statues, the Confederate statues, have come down, but Lee has not.
Right.
Lee has not.
And so let's go now. So now that we have this in context, let's go back to this.
So on the first 2 nights of the protests in the end of May and the beginning of June, all of the statues were vandalized with spray paint and graffiti and stuff. And it was such an amazing thing. So having lived in Virginia all of my life, I've never seen those statues vandalized before. And it's not because they haven't been. It's because the city and the state show up immediately and clean them up right away. So you might see pictures on the news. Somebody gets there in time to take a picture. But I've never actually gotten there in time to take a picture. They cleaned it up so fast. Right. So there was so much graffiti over all of them. And there's suddenly this huge tourist attraction for Richmond. Like, people are driving in from all over Central Virginia the next morning
now
to see this graffiti, and
beautiful.
Because it's amazing.
And people have their pictures taken for graduation.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, and it's been continuing to grow. And occasionally some pro-Confederacy people will show up and try to clean it. They usually come with guns. One person stands there with a gun and guards what's usually a woman.
Guns are a very bad way to clean things.
They really are. But there's usually a man standing there with a gun guarding a woman woman who's actually scrubbing, which is a whole nother thing. But and then everybody leaves them alone, and they leave, and everybody just comes back and puts more paint down. So the paint has been growing. But the Lee Monument, which is the only of these statues that has a place where you can stand. The others are in little roundabouts, and there's not really space for people to gather around them. The Lee Monument has
a park around it.
Has basically a park around it that the state has never wanted anybody to get on the grass. There's been no crosswalks. There's been no benches. It's supposed to be a pristine, idle space for the god of Robert E. Lee, right? So to watch this graffiti slowly creeping its way day by day up the top of the 6-story pedestal, right? With people hanging out on the grass all day long and now coming in for pictures and graduation photos. And so that's been amazing to watch. And it's beautiful and powerful. And it's created a community space where I found them handing out water.
Okay.
But
yes.
As they're handing out water, sorry, I'm still talking.
No, yeah.
Let her rip.
Yes. So, but as they're handing out water, the first couple days, there was a lot of chatter on the internet from bad guys saying, let's leave tainted water down there to poison everybody.
Oh,
yes.
right.
And they actually got some.
And they
yes,
there was
I did.
actually some there, right?
Yeah, so
go ahead.
They left some there?
Yes, they did. I actually drink the water for a week, and every day, sorry, this is pretty disgusting, but for 10 days straight, I had panic attacks and massive diarrhea. I felt like I was dying. And so
you drank some tainted water?
I drank tainted water. They were taking packs of water, taking a few out, and then stuffing them back in a water pack. There was even some bottles where they were taking, poking a small hole at the very bottom and then reburning the bottom of the water bottles to reseal them.
You couldn't tell whether or not.
You couldn't tell. And honestly, like, who would have thought that you had to worry about, like, when people were bringing us water initially, we were thinking, oh, this is so nice. They're leaving this water. People are bringing us so much water, but they're poisoning. But they're poisoning us slowly but surely. And
so now you can really only take stuff from people you trust.
I only take water from Tara. and luckily for Tara and her work in the community, she has been a major part of what RAA has been doing. I don't think that we had the means to keep going. So I just want to thank her because we're able to keep doing what we're doing because of the outpour from the community. And absolutely. I think that just speaks volumes to not only to RAA and what we do, but to the community as well. I mean, 32 cases of water every other day. I mean, it's just overwhelming.
It's by the way, not my money. I'm delivering it. This is a whole bunch of white middle-aged people going, there's people down there thirsty. We must give them water.
This is mom
This
power.
is the mom thing. They're sending me money to deliver water down there on the theory that the people down there need to see someone showing up with a name and a face and a license plate behind the water in order to trust it. So that's kind of how this started.
And that's Tara. She is the name and the face that have been have continually showed up. I don't think she's missed a beat. When she can't be out there, she's like, hey, can I make a run? I'm leaving for a few days. Can I make a run? I'll be by. Like, is there anything that you ladies need? And I mean, not just for RAA, she has donated, she has dropped off water to everyone, to several groups throughout Marcus David Peters Circle.
And all the other groups there know that they can trust her.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. We love her.
So talk to me about the other groups there. So how many groups are down there supporting the protesters?
Ooh. I think at one point there was 6 or 7 maybe.
6 or 7.
We started out...
We were the first group.
We were the first group. We had 1 table, 1 tent, and 2 coolers. And but I think the biggest setup we ended up having was like 7 tables and 5 tents and 20 volunteers in a day or something.
And then are the other groups doing something similar, or are they doing other things?
I think everyone kind of started out similar. It was helping pass out water, snacks, medical supplies, literature on, what to do if you get arrested, or here's the bail bond number.
Wow.
They broadcast that bail bond number on the statue.
There's a group down there that broadcasts, that does a light show at night.
Which is amazing.
Which is really great.
Yeah.
Documentary nights.
Mm-hmm. So I think at one point it was 6 or 7. Some of them were just more focused on like water and snacks. We've got one tent out there who sets up pretty regularly now that just does medical supplies or medical intervention. And then there's other groups that just kind of set up and sell T-shirts or stickers or whatever that goes to different community organizations and funds. But I think in the beginning, everyone was kind of doing the same thing. Snacks, fruit.
Are they all nonprofits?
We have no clue. I think
one other group said they were forming one. I'm not
Everybody
sure.
always says they're forming one.
Right, so I'm not sure
Ashley
how
and
far
Ida are
along
the
they got.
only people who have ever actually done it ever in the history of the world.
And honestly,
actually the only real nonprofit there.
if I'm being completely honest, we are the only group out there with a purpose, not to toot our horns, but
right.
it's bigger than snacks and water and things like that. Those things are important, but voter suppression, registering people to vote, helping people restore their rights to vote, giving people the tools that they need to find jobs and things like that. I think it's bigger than what we initially thought. And
Right.
we're just like every day, we now have a committee, we have board members, we have a slew of volunteers. We're official. We have a website. We have our own photographer. We're legit.
So let's talk about this nonprofit for a second. You didn't start, neither of you started at a nonprofit. What were you doing before this?
I was unemployed due to COVID. I'm a bartender at the Boathouse, but also I was currently in dental school, so at VCU. So that's what I was doing prior to this. And since then, I'm like, maybe I should go down the social work route. So I'm revamping. I'm thinking like maybe I should change my major.
And Ashley, what were you doing?
I used to work, me and Ida actually met working at the Boathouse together. So I was bartending and serving for a different company now, but I was also laid off due to COVID. So for us, it was easy in the beginning to be set up every day for,
right.
I think 12 and 13 hours some days.
13 hours a day.
Yeah, we would set up by 11 at the latest. And then there were some nights I never left the circle until 1. And then the next morning we were right back out there. Like we were texting each other at 8 a.m. Like, hey, who's picking up ice? Like, I've got money on my PayPal. Like somebody gave me yesterday or someone handed me cash yesterday. And like,
so why did you form a nonprofit? Why not just keep doing what you were doing?
Because I think to get the support of the community, we could have kept doing what we were doing, but would we have gone further? Would we have been able to you need supplies, you need different things. There's different things that goes into being a nonprofit. And I think for us, like we needed laptops because we do resume writing classes. We also have someone who teaches an IT class. So there's things that we needed, and we wanted to reach people more than just seeing them at the monument.
So you're teaching people stuff right there at the monument?
Sometimes at the monument, we have our laptops out doing resume writing classes, but also we've had the pleasure of using Diversity of Richmond to do some classes and have small meetings. We also use a novel co-working space. That's where my partner's office is, and we've been blessed to be able to use those spaces.
right.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So what's the mission? What's the actual mission of the nonprofit, and how did you go about forming it?
So it's really just more so to heal the community however we can through voter restoration rights, getting people registered just to begin with. We've had a lot of first-time voters out there. People literally go up and take pictures in their caps and gowns and then come over to get a water. And we're like, hey, you're graduating high school. You're 18. Let's do this.
Oh, that's cool.
So we've snagged a lot of first-time voters. But we want to work through educating people on what their rights are, because a lot of people don't know what they are. Even me, I'm not completely, 100% literate on everything to do with voting. And we want to really focus on education and bridging the gaps in the community. There's a lot of people who can't be better if they don't know better. We can't do better if we don't know better. So we really want to focus on education. IT is such a huge field, and that's one of our focuses because everything is going digital. Everything is computerized, especially with COVID. You've noticed that like now everything is digital.
Right. We're all in different rooms right now.
Exactly. So, with that being said, there's not a lot of like free or helpful tools out there that can help the youth or even the older generations learn the programs. I mean,
We're the older generations, by the way. Just so you know.
The last computer class I remember taking was like 8th grade typing, and that was like.
So you started. So you started this nonprofit in response to a crisis that was going on at the moment,
Right.
and then you broadened your mission pretty quickly to broader educational and voter registration and outreach and things like that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's the benefit of having a nonprofit versus just doing that anyway?
The benefit of having a nonprofit, I think the support that we're able to get, we're allowed to go to certain businesses and say, hey, I need, whether it's lunch, whether it's office supplies, whether it's copies or things like that, we're able to do those things, if not free, but at a discounted rate.
Mm.
So I think the nonprofit is, and it solidifies that this is not, a one-day thing for us. We're in this for the long haul. There's still so much work to be done in the community that we're not just going to stop at education. We're going to have seats at the table where decisions are being made on behalf of the Black community.
So the businesses can write off donations, and there's a lot of benefits to them.
Right.
Dealing
Absolutely.
with a nonprofit.
Right. And we can also, apply for grants and things like that through different organizations and businesses and things. So we can get extra funding to help fund more and more for the community.
Absolutely.
It's all to benefit the community.
Everything we do is sheerly, I don't think that if it wasn't for the community, RAA probably wouldn't be a thing. So
Absolutely not.
I think the nonprofit just solidifies things, and it just makes things more concrete. And I think that it's important as well.
Right, and it will theoretically have a longer term impact too.
Yes, absolutely. Like I said, it's not a moment, it's the movement, and we're here for the movement.
So, go ahead, Ashley. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think the fact that we were able to sit out at the monument for so long every day in the beginning and network with people like Tara, with different politicians, city leaders, and just everyday people, and kind of hear what they needed and what they wanted. And you realize that, yes, we're in the midst of a pandemic with COVID, and then we're in the midst of a pandemic with police brutality. We're also in a pandemic of just generational systematic oppression in every sense of the statement. Like, this is things where people have generationally not been able to get out of the hole that they're in.
Right.
So it's, if we can help people get out of that hole in whatever way we can, just to help lift them up so they can better themselves.
So I know this is moving really fast, and it's developing really fast.
Yes,
Absolutely.
How do you, and maybe you don't know this, how do you measure whether you're doing, how do you measure how good a job you're doing?
The community. There's people that, they come out looking for us, whether it's Ashley or myself. Like I said, we have a full committee. They look for us. We have people texting every day, calling us, I'm coming out to the circle. Do you need snacks? Thank you so much. Even people who aren't from Richmond, who are driving near and far to come see this beautiful artwork at the graffiti, they're just like, thank you so much for being out here. And I think the voting, having the voter registration set up has been a very, very, very positive feedback from the community.
Absolutely.
People are like, I cannot thank you enough. This is so important. And as well as it's important to them, it's also important to us, not just on a presidential level, but on a local level. We need to make sure that we are holding the officials who we elect in office, that we're holding them accountable and holding them to standards and making them keep their word, keep good on their promise.
Right. And I just thought about this. The other question that was in my head was, how do you interact with other nonprofits, and how do you know that your mission isn't, redundant with other ones, but you're actually on the ground right there.
Right.
So
we're on the ground. We're right there, and there's a lot of different groups that do voter registration, but there hasn't been a group that has been out every day. I'm talking about before, when we first started this out, we were out there 12, 13 hours a day faithfully. We have since then dialed back. We have a team who, if Ashley is not there, myself, we have a team of volunteers. We have committees that are out there. So
you're community building in the purest sense of this.
We're community building. We're making contact. We've been able to outsource certain things. There's a young lady who was homeless. We were able to help her find housing. I even took in one of my volunteers for a few weeks and helped him put him into connection with Nations Foundation, who provides housing for LGBTQIA people.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, as you grow, what's going to be interesting, as the world turns, right, and as you win all these battles, you're going to have this. You will have built essentially a company, and then and there'll be a whole bunch of other metrics later. How do you interact with other groups and that? But right now, you're on the ground doing the stuff. You're actually embedded in a community.
Yes,
that is there doing all that sort of stuff. So it's fascinating to me to watch, to be able to talk to somebody who's doing it. I usually interact with nonprofits that are much farther along in their mission. They're not as immediate, but because they're farther along in their mission, they're not necessarily on the ground in the place with the people.
And I think that no matter how big RAA grows, no matter how successful we become, right there with the people is where you'll find us always.
Absolutely.
It's our duty. It's a part of our mission. Being with the people is forgotten. This is not an organization that you're going to see. I'm going to keep using this word. We're not here for the moment. We're here for the movement.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Okay, but if they're going to be on the ground, we're going to need to get them some gas masks and some shields.
Please. I'm just kidding.
So, yeah.
I mean, hopefully that part's over, I hope.
Well, I hope so.
For now.
Yeah, we got shields.
Yeah.
So how, predict the future for me. I mean, this may be an inexact science, I admit, but a year from now, what are you doing? What's the world? What does that circle look like?
I think, honestly, for me, a year from now, just after talking with so many people in the community, and when we say there are so many people out there, it's all different races, ages, creeds, religions, backgrounds. We've met people from literally every corner of the globe out there. I think that most people agree they want the statue gone, at least the part in honoring Lee and all the garbage that he did. A lot of the community, even the immediate neighbors, have said that they would love for the artwork on the monument, the concrete piece of it, to stay, and then have it morphed into a park and a community space where we can keep having the open dialogue that we've been having out there. Because anytime you go out, it doesn't matter what group you go and interact with or who you talk to. It's always a really empowering conversation. We've even had some discussions out there at our table with people who don't agree with the monuments coming down. They don't agree with the protests. They think that, everyone's just overreacting and racism isn't that bad. But at the end of the conversations, we can leave, for the majority of the time, we can leave on good terms with each other and realize that, some people just aren't going to get it, and that's okay. But I think most people just want that to be a community space. We want to keep having these kind of conversations. So for us, for sure, we're still going to be out with the people doing, everything we're trying to do.
Right. And your mission is beyond just these statues. I mean, you've built this thing that's a lot broader.
It's very, the statues are very symbolic. I mean, they definitely need to come down. And I think if they can come down here and we can impact Richmond with real change, if we can really take something positive out of everything that's happened. And this isn't just like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. This is Marcus Davis Peters. I mean, that was a couple of years ago. This is Eric Gardner. That was 8 years ago now. I mean, this has been decades of buildup of really hundreds of years of buildup of just oppression and systematic,
well,
and
problems. That's not coming down in a year.
And right. And so for me, I think a year from now, how can we start the healing process? What does the healing process looks like? And not only for the community, but for the Black community, global. And how can RAA help bring forth the healing process of years of not only systematic oppression, but just like everyday oppression, generation oppression. So that's what things look like for the healing process. And what can we do? What's the solution to the healing process? And how do we go forth after the monuments have come down.
Right. One thing at a time.
Exactly.
Right.
So, last question. If you could go back in time and give yourself, that's not that far back in time, really. You could go a few months back and give yourself advice about, well, let's just stick with the idea of a nonprofit. If you could give your earlier selves advice about how to start a nonprofit, or alternate question, different phrase, if there's somebody out there right now who's thinking about doing something similar, what advice would you give them?
Honestly, when we first decided to start this nonprofit, we had a lot of people that we were like just inviting in, like, yeah, sure, come hang out. And they kind of became a part of what we were doing. But then they were pushing their own agendas, which was a conflict in what we were trying to do. And it didn't align with our mission. So it would definitely be careful who you invite in, because not everyone is aligned with your mission and is there for your mission.
Right.
I think they saw we were doing a lot of interviews and talking to a lot of people. And I think that like sparked a flame in some of them. And then they started trying to push their own agenda, which wasn't aligned with what we were doing. They actually were pushing a very violent agenda. And that's the opposite of what RAA is trying to portray and what we're trying to do in the community.
Well, and that's an interesting point. A lot of people probably don't understand how a nonprofit is organized. I mean, you yourself can't be a nonprofit.
No,
Right.
absolutely not.
No, you have to have a whole board,
You have to
committee members.
you have to form a board, and
Yes.
So what exactly? Can you just sort of quickly lay out what are the key factors that make a nonprofit possible?
First of all, do you mean like as far as board members or?
Just the structure of it, because you can. So if I wanted to start one, I can't just start a nonprofit. There's I have to get a board together, and
Right.
and that board all has to think the same, because a lot of nonprofits collapse because the board changes.
Right. And so we have, so what that looks like, we have bylaws, we have agreements, we have on our committee, we have a president, a vice president, we have a director chair of volunteers, we have a chair of it's the person that goes after the money and forms the meetings we have the treasurer,
We have a secretary.
we have a secretary, we have an events coordinator,
And we have the chair of development and outreach.
yes, and we also have a photographer, someone who is there on the front lines at every protest when Ashley or myself can't be there.
So you have to have a group of people who are aligned with an operational manual, essentially,
Absolutely.
a document of understanding, so that you're all operating together.
Absolutely. And that's when the bylaws come in. And the bylaws are something that we discuss. We don't do anything without consulting with each other. Mm-hmm. I think that was, for me, that was very critical, because you have to be able to trust the people who,
Right.
and make sure that their vision is aligned with what you're trying to do.
And once you have that group, then that company then becomes formed with its own tax number.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. Our own EIN number.
But I'm going to guess that more daunting than coming up with who's going to be the treasurer and who's going to be the secretary and what's our mission statement going to be, the more daunting thing is, and then you have to fill out a huge amount of paperwork
Absolutely.
and document all of that and
Yes.
file paperwork and figure out
Is there
everything's got to
How
be
to
done
do it.
correctly.
is there
Exactly.
a lot of paperwork involved?
There's a lot of paperwork involved. We've been very fortunate. My partner, she has formed Baby Buns, several different nonprofits, two to be specific, Baby Buns, and then another nonprofit. She also is the treasurer for Diversity of Richmond. She was also previously the chair-elect for Diversity of Richmond. So she has had a lot of experience with doing these community things, and it kind of made it easier for us to navigate through all this paperwork that, I mean,
Because it wasn't the first time. You've done it before.
it's the first time that I've done it, and looking at all the papers and everything, it can be somewhat discouraging. And I get why people would say, oh, I want to form a nonprofit, but then never do it,
Right.
because the paperwork alone is a nightmare.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot. We even went to set up our bank account the other day, and I think it was like 30 pages of paperwork just to start a bank
Just
account.
to give somebody money.
Yeah, and we were like,
right.
"Can we just give it to you?
Yeah.
Put it in a piggy bank for us." But yeah, we were really lucky having her to be able to help with everything and all the paperwork side of it, because like we said, we had no idea what we were doing. We were just like, yeah, let's do this.
But now that you have this, you are in an interesting position down there because you're official. Because when the police come down and want to drive everyone away, you're official.
We're the only ones who they want. We have made such a presence that when they're harassing people, Richmond Action Alliance is not the group that they're harassing. It's more like, thank you so much for being out here. Is there anything we can do for you?
Oh, for real?
Yeah,
yes.
they haven't bothered us. I think last week, the past 2 weeks, they've been coming out and kind of hassling the other groups out there, because some of them were starting to like sleep out there, and not starting to. They have been sleeping out there since mid-June-ish. So people who were literally living there, like using the bathroom in the alleys.
That's not good. And you have permits and all that sort of stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's an issue. Where do you go to the bathroom down there?
We have safe houses. We've made enough connections. We have befriended
enough neighbors
to. They invite us in. If you or anyone in your organization needs anything, whether it's aluminum foil or paper towel or to use the bathroom,
they got us.
Yeah, they've opened their doors. There's a nice little old black lady, Miss Evelyn. She walks 10 blocks and she lives in the community, but she will walk back and forth to bring us paper towel, to bring us cleaning supplies, whatever it is we need.
Miss Evelyn, shout out to Miss Evelyn.
Yes. She's been out there since day one, pretty much.
It's so I need to break in with Richmond history, because Monument Avenue has been traditionally extremely conservative. These people's housing values are tied to those monuments being there.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But
and back up a little bit. The monuments were sold to be
development points. Yeah, exactly. To be the development points for this segregated neighborhood.
Yeah, you had in order to buy in that neighborhood, you had to essentially sign a paper. You wanted to sign a paper that said no person of color would ever live there.
But more recently, like in my lifetime, Monument Avenue is the place where the rich white people live.
Right.
It's still a lot of money to live on Monument Avenue. And it's been very conservative, old money Richmond type people.
Yep.
But it's turned over dramatically in the last decade or two. So I'm Gen X, but the people who live there now are by and large Gen X, but with more money than we've got. And there's an awful lot of, LGBTQ people living there. There's an it's a nice neighborhood.
It's a melting pot.
It's still an extremely expensive neighborhood, but it is no longer old Richmond money conservative. Now it's young.
And you have people that are allies that are giving you access to their homes.
Yes, which is, at first I think they were iffy about inviting people into their homes or even having us out there. One of the nice little old ladies, her name is Allison. She is a McGuire. Her family owns the VA hospital.
Wait, a McGuire like Hunter Holmes McGuire?
McGuire. They own
McGuire.
They own the VA hospital in Richmond. So
that's an old Confederate name.
Exactly. So you would understand why I was very shocked. But I think because we were so persistent, and the message that we were portraying, that we were sending, I think that they were like, we can get on board with this, because I don't, some people, they're racist, but they really don't know they're racist. And
welcome to Virginia.
And that's how Miss Alice Miss Alice is. God bless her heart. She's one of those people, but she has been so nice and so kind, and is like, oh yeah, you're more than welcome to come and use my restroom. But in the same breath, she'll say, wow, I can't believe you said bouquet.
Wow.
She gave us some flowers, and
there's some cultural difference here.
Yeah, the cultural difference, but like she still invites us into our home because I think of how persistent we were, and she sees that we're nonviolent, and we're not out there late night partying.
We're out there for the cause.
We're out there for the cause, and we're trying to bring about change.
And you're making personal relationships with
Absolutely. We've got like their phone numbers. They have our phone numbers.
And then, and I'm guessing being a nonprofit gives you some credibility with people like that as well.
Yes,
sure.
Absolutely.
Also, Ida does yoga, and
Yes.
that makes her a non-threatening Black person
Hot
who does
yoga.
Right. Not a traditional African American.
Not the other kind of Black
They
person.
call me
It's the
Brenda
kind-
sometimes.
It's the yoga kind
Right,
of.
let's go into the stereotype world. That's good. All right, this is great. So what's the name of the organization again?
We are Richmond Action Alliance, RAA, RAR.
RAR. Oh, that's good. And how do we find your website?
Ashley, take them away.
It is www.therichmondactionalliance.org. And if anyone wants to reach out to us with any questions or comments or concerns, or they want to volunteer or anything like that, the contact email is actually contact@therichmondactionalliance.org.
Okay.
We're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter now. So that's been
Richmond Action Alliance.
Yep, Richmond Action
And
Alliance.
if you're actually in Richmond and you wanted to find them down at the Circle, tell them where you are at the Circle.
We are now, since the police have cracked down on who can be inside the Circle, we are in the median, closest to where the Jeb Stuart Monument used to be. So a little closer.
Used to be.
Yeah,
Let's celebrate that a minute.
Yeah. So I mean, the
So you're on the
pedestal
west.
is
You're
still
west.
there.
The west side.
That's the east side, dude.
The east. That's right. The east
Yeah.
side.
Wow.
That's what I meant.
You let all these come here's.
Sorry, man.
Yeah. So we're on the east side
It's
of the
like east, but
monument.
it's the opposite.
Like if you're looking at it, the head is to our left over there.
Okay.
So yeah.
And you're in that median over there.
Mhm.
We're in
We've
that
got
meeting.
big signs out that say voter registration, free drinks, free water.
And you
we have a
accept
tent.
donations of water and things like that.
We are. Again, we're still trying to be careful just because you can never be too careful.
Right.
So we're going through people that we know for the most part, but we do still have people who show up and, have snacks and stuff or just want to donate and they pull over. And,
And if somebody wanted to donate, for instance, educational stuff or services or anything like that, I'm assuming you've essentially become community organizers. So
Yes.
Right.
you can
I
help
don't know
them.
if they actually like that we do this or not, but since they're the nonprofit down there, I've just been dumping everything I have on them and being like, "Here, can you get this to somebody who like?" I know this isn't your thing, but like, here's some stuff.
We love it because you've done that, and I remember you bought baby shampoo, and I remember there was a sit-in at City Hall, and our photographer Sandra, she was at the sit-in in City Hall, and I was able to make at least 15 to 20 bags with like shields, masks, baby shampoo, lemon juice, saline solution, wound wash, Band-Aids, and I was able to, and just so happened they were gassed that night.
Oh my God, that
at
was
a peaceful sit-in.
Yep.
And the city seized everything, and thank gosh for Tara because she
Turned right around and got it all back.
She got it all back.
some of it, some of it they didn't give back, but we got
is this
we got a lot of
the
it.
thing?
We got a lot of it back.
Is this the thing we went for?
Yeah, this
Yes.
is stuff we got back.
Oh.
We got
Yes.
a lot of it back.
Yeah.
Basketball goal.
Basketball goal.
Yeah.
Which actually, I know Tara saw it. The VCU basketball team was out there shooting hoops on it the other day. Yeah, they
They're
came by.
better at this than I am. I also tried shooting basketball on that basketball hoop, and there's no backboard anymore because the backboard was broken.
She shot
but
basketball
try.
on the Jeff Davis Monument.
that was fun.
That was fun.
Yeah, that sounds fun for sure.
They took his statue down and put up a basketball hoop. That
Yes.
was-
By they, we don't mean the city.
No,
It was
not
not.
the
That
city.
was
Right.
But yeah.
The city wouldn't do anything that cool.
And so, what are you doing for the rest of the day? Because it's 100 degrees outside.
We're actually gonna go pack. Ashley has a birthday coming up, so I am taking her to Vegas for her birthday.
Oh,
Don't breathe on the airplane, okay?
wait, you're going to Vegas?
Yeah.
All right. So just so you know, what happens in Vegas doesn't always stay in Vegas.
We'll try to
I.e.
keep it
Corona.
Yeah. Some of that shit will come back with
we're not
you.
going to see you for a while after you get back.
We're going to socially distance
Yeah.
while we're there
Well,
still. We're
well,
just gonna-
absolutely. You should see the gas mask that I have. I have respirators and goggles to wear on the
She's
airplane.
just missing like the white forensic files, like suit to go around it.
Big bubbles.
But yeah, it's all of this is covered. So
All right.
we're good to
Richmond
go.
Alliance, richmondactionalliance.com.
.org.
.org.
Richmond Action Alliance.
The richmondactionalliance.org. Okay. And go to reinventionpodcast.com. So thank you very much for being here. I'll be out and unplug you in a minute.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thanks, guys.
that was awesome.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna turn off the recording here.